All right, so get this. We're diving deep into High on Life today. You know that FPS where your weapons talk?
Oh, yeah.
And it's from the co-creator of Rick and Morty.
I've heard of it.
Yeah. We're going to be basing our deep dive on the Reach Pool review that's on YouTube.
Oh,
So is High on Life all hype and jokes, or is the gameplay actually good?
yeah, that's a good question. I'm interested.
Let's find out.
Let's do it.
So the game is going for that humor.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Reach Pool said the whole experience is like one big joke.
Wow.
They talked about how your character is invisible and the infinite galaxy only has like 3 planets.
Right. That sounds pretty funny.
Did you catch any of their favorite funny moments?
I did. There's one that stands out. It's the bit about the protagonist's family.
Yeah.
It's so unexpected, and it plays on those classic sci-fi tropes, but in a really hilarious way.
Yeah, it sounds like they nailed that self-aware, absurdist humor that they were going for.
For sure.
But what's interesting is that Reachpool said High on Life isn't just a string of gags.
Yeah,
It's got something more.
exactly.
Yeah.
They said that they were really impressed by the core gameplay. The movement and shooting feels really solid, like a proper FPS, despite the comedic tone.
So it's not sacrificing gameplay for the laughs.
Right. Seems like they found a good balance.
That's really awesome. What about those talking weapons?
Oh, yeah.
I've heard they're a big part of the game.
Huge. They each have their own personality and abilities that actually change how you approach combat.
Interesting. So they affect gameplay.
Yeah. Reachpool actually said that they had trouble picking a favorite because they're all so enjoyable and they're really well connected to each character's personality.
That's awesome.
So it seems like they really put a lot of thought into making each weapon feel unique.
So cool. It's like having a whole squad of quirky companions along for the ride.
I like that.
Speaking of memorable encounters, let's talk boss battles.
Okay.
I know some games get criticized for having really repetitive boss fights,
Yeah.
but it sounds like High on Life does things differently.
Yeah. Reachpool contrasted it with Metal Hellsinger.
Oh.
That was a game that they previously criticized because it had those repetitive bosses. They said that High on Life sets up each boss with a mini area that provides context and personality for the character.
Wow.
So it makes each encounter more memorable.
So they're not just throwing random enemies at you.
Doesn't sound like it.
There's actual thought and storytelling going into these boss encounters.
Seems like it.
That's definitely a plus. And speaking of storytelling, what about the sound and the voices?
Right.
Did you recognize any familiar voices?
I did. Reachpool pointed out that there were some voices from Rick and Morty, like Justin Roiland and Maurice LaMarche.
Oh, very cool. I bet that adds another layer of humor for fans of the show.
Definitely. But Reachpool also mentioned that overall, the quality of the dialogue is really good. They said it's funny, it's well written, and it contributes to the game's unique character.
It's not just phoned in.
Not at all.
Mm.
And they even mentioned that there was a lot of effort put into translating the game for Latin American Spanish. They adapted the humor and dialogue to make sure that it was a good localized experience.
Wow. That's really awesome. They didn't just do a straight translation.
It seems like they really cared about making sure the humor translated.
Yeah. That shows a real dedication to making the game accessible. I wonder if they considered adding a Spanish dub.
Well, that's actually where we start to see some cracks in this game.
Oh.
Reachpool did point out that despite the attention to the localization, there's no Spanish dub for the game.
Interesting.
And they argued that a dub would really enhance the experience, especially because it's a fast-paced game.
Yeah, you can miss dialogue while you're playing.
Exactly.
That's a good point. I know some people prefer subtitles, but having the option for a dub would definitely make the game more accessible.
Right. It opens it up to a wider audience.
Yeah.
And Reachpool said they enjoy both the Latin American and Castilian Spanish dubs of Rick and Morty.
Oh.
So it doesn't seem like they're opposed to dubbing in general.
I see what you mean. So while the game seems to be doing a lot right, it sounds like there are some areas for improvement,
Yeah, definitely.
particularly when it comes to options and accessibility.
You got it. And the lack of a dub isn't the only thing that's missing.
Really?
Reachpool also criticized the limited customization options that are available.
Oh, no.
What kind of options are we talking about here?
Well, they mentioned that you can adjust the subtitle size or the background, which is a pretty big deal for accessibility.
Right. Having customizable subtitles can make a huge difference for people with visual impairments or for those who just prefer larger text.
Exactly. And here's another big one. They said there's no field of view slider.
No field of view slider.
Wow. You know that option that lets you adjust how much of the game world you see on the screen?
Right.
Yeah, that one.
I can see how not having that could be a real problem,
Yeah.
especially for people who are sensitive to motion sickness.
Right.
I get motion sick pretty easily in some games,
Yeah.
and I always appreciate having that slider.
Yeah, it can make a big difference. And unfortunately, Reachpool said that they actually experienced motion sickness in this game.
Because of that narrow field of view.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, they said it really impacted their ability to enjoy the game.
That's a shame. It sounds like a pretty significant oversight, especially for an FPS. You'd think they would prioritize a feature like that.
You would think so. Accessibility options should really be a standard these days in game development.
Right. It's 2025.
Exactly.
Are we ready to move on to the next big issue?
I think so. Let's brace ourselves and talk about bugs.
Oh no. Every gamer's worst nightmare.
I know.
Did Reachpool run into any big problems while they were playing?
They did. They said that they had multiple game-breaking bugs.
Oh, wow.
And they even had to restart their progress at one point because the game wouldn't let them continue.
Yikes.
Yeah. They were really skeptical about the state of the game at the time of the review, which was December 2022.
Wow, so a while ago.
But they were hopeful that there would be some patches in the future.
Well, that's concerning, especially if those bugs are preventing people from progressing.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if the game was rushed a little.
Maybe. But wait, Reachpool added an update to the video.
Oh.
They mentioned that their original save file actually became uncorrupted.
Right.
After a patch.
So it was fixed.
Yeah.
That's pretty good news.
Right. I mean that the developers are actually trying to fix these issues.
Right. It gives people hope.
Yeah, knowing that they're patching things up makes me feel a bit better.
Me too.
Yeah.
So after all of that, what's the final verdict? Should we play this or not?
Yeah, should we play it?
Well, Reachpool gave a hesitant recommendation.
Oh.
They said play it, but be aware that there are probably going to be some bugs.
So proceed with caution.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
They also suggested waiting for further updates and bug fixes, especially because a 16 gigabit patch dropped during their playthrough.
Wow, 16 gigabits.
Yeah, and of course they reiterated their wish for the Spanish dub.
Of course.
But ultimately they said it's up to the viewers to decide if they want to brave the glitches for a genuinely funny and unique gaming experience.
That makes sense.
They even encourage people to share their own experiences.
That's always helpful.
Right? You get other perspectives.
So what stands out to you the most so far?
Well, what strikes me is the contrast between how ambitious the game is and its execution.
Okay.
So on the one hand, you have this incredibly creative, well-written, hilarious experience that really pushes the boundaries of comedy in gaming.
Okay.
But then on the other hand, you have these technical shortcomings that really detract from it.
Right.
It's a good reminder that even with the best intentions, sometimes the reality of game development doesn't quite match up to the vision.
I hear you. It's like the developers had this amazing concept, but maybe they didn't have enough time or resources to polish it to perfection.
Right.
But isn't there something to be said for a game that dares to be different, even if it's a little rough around the edges?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what I think makes High on Life so fascinating. It really sparks these conversations about what we value in games.
Yeah.
Do we prioritize innovation and creativity, or do we demand technical perfection?
Maybe it's a bit of both.
It's a good question.
And it makes me think, what does it say about us as gamers and what we actually want in our entertainment?
Yeah, what do we prioritize? Do we forgive technical flaws if it's a funny and unique game?
Right. Or do we just expect a certain level of polish?
It's hard to say.
Yeah, I don't know where I land on that.
It really highlights how subjective enjoyment is and how personal preferences can really impact how much we like a game.
Totally. One person's game-breaking bug is another person's hilarious glitch. It's all about perspective.
And that's what makes these deep dives so fun.
Yeah.
We get to explore these different perspectives without us necessarily coming to any conclusions.
Well, I think that's a good place to stop for part 1 of our deep dive into High on Life.
Sounds good to me.
We've covered a lot of ground, but there's still more to discuss.
Yeah, we barely scratched the surface.
Right. So stay tuned for part 2, where we'll go deeper into this game's unique charm, its potential for future sequels, and maybe we'll even uncover some more hidden depths.
Sounds great. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. See you there.
See you then. So welcome back to our deep dive into High on Life.
Has anything that we've discussed so far surprised you about this game?
Yeah, definitely. You know, going in, I knew it was going to be funny, but I'm surprised by how much depth there might be.
Yeah, it sounds like it's not just a comedy game. There's thought put into the gameplay, the world, and the characters.
It's interesting because that seems to be a point of contention for a lot of players.
Really?
Yeah. Some people really like that unexpected depth, but some people think it takes away from the comedy.
It's like the style versus substance argument. Can a game be both hilarious and thought-provoking?
I don't know. Does one have to overshadow the other?
What do you think of other games that have tried to blend comedy with those deeper themes?
Oh, there's a bunch. What about you?
Um, I really like Portal 2. It's hilarious, but also has those pretty heavy themes about artificial intelligence and free will.
Oh, yeah, that's a great example. Portal 2 definitely balances humor and depth very well.
Right, and it sounds like High on Life might be trying something similar, just with a more over-the-top style.
Yeah, for sure. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the contrast between the game's ambition and its execution.
Right.
Do you think that the technical issues that are in this game hold it back from being really great?
It's hard to say. On the one hand, bugs and a lack of options are definitely frustrating.
Yeah.
It affects gameplay and it's annoying. But on the other hand, I really like the creativity and the risks that the developers are taking.
Yeah.
It's like they said, we're going to make the weirdest, most hilarious game, even if it means messing some things up along the way.
And I kind of respect that.
Me too. It's a good reminder that games don't always have to be perfect to be enjoyable.
Yeah, and sometimes those flaws can make the game more charming, especially in a comedy game like this.
It's like those B movies that are so bad they're good.
Yeah, there's an appeal to that unpolished weirdness.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes High on Life so appealing to players.
It's a breath of fresh air, I think, in a gaming landscape that's becoming a little bit too safe and predictable. Yeah, for sure. It reminds us that games can be a little bit broken, and that's okay.
Yeah, actually, those are usually the games that are the most memorable.
I agree. So for those who are okay with looking past the technical issues, what do you think they would like the most?
Well, besides the humor, I think it's the characters.
Yeah.
Reachpool mentioned how much they liked the talking weapons, and I think that's part of what makes the game unique.
Right. It's not just about shooting things. It's about interacting with these weapons and, building a relationship.
Yeah, it's like having a bunch of friends along for the ride.
Exactly. And they're all hilarious and dysfunctional. And that makes the game have so much personality.
That's what really surprised me the most. It's not just about the jokes, but creating a memorable experience through the characters.
It shows that character development and storytelling can be important in any genre.
Totally. And that makes High on Life so much more than just a meme game. It has a lot of heart, even though there's guns and absurdities.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think about future sequels? Do you think this is a one-time thing, or could we see more of High on Life?
I definitely think there's potential. The game's universe is so big and bizarre that there are endless possibilities for stories.
And the talking weapons have so much more potential for screen time.
Exactly. And if they iron out those technical issues, I think it could be a really big franchise.
I agree. I want to see what they come up with next. But before we talk about sequels, I want to go back to something.
What's that?
Well, we've talked about all the aspects of the game, but what about those underlying themes?
Right, the meaning of life and all that.
Yeah, those deeper meanings that might be hiding beneath the surface.
Do you think that this game is trying to say something profound with all that silliness?
It's hard to say for sure, but I think there's potential for it to explore some interesting concepts.
So you're saying it might not be as shallow as it looks?
Yeah, let's think about the premise of the game. Aliens want to use humans as drugs, and your only hope is a gun.
Right.
It sounds absurd, but could that be a social commentary?
Maybe on society's obsession with escapism or corporate greed.
Exactly. And what about the idea of choice in the game?
Right. Reachpool talked about how the weapons are always commenting on your actions.
Right, almost like the game is questioning free will.
Are you saying that we're not really in control of what our character does?
Well, are we just puppets controlled by these weapons, or can we make our own choices?
That's deep. I never thought about it like that.
That's the thing about satire. It can make you laugh, but also make you think about the world.
So I'm starting to look at High on Life in a new way. Now I want to look deeper into these themes and see what else we can find.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more to uncover.
But I think we should save that for the last part of our deep dive.
Yeah, we've only scratched the surface.
So to our listeners, come back for part 3, where we'll unpack everything we've talked about.
We'll see you there.
All right, so welcome back to our final part of our deep dive on High on Life.
Yeah.
We've talked about the humor, the weapons, and even those bugs, but
Yeah.
now we want to get philosophical.
Yeah, let's do it.
Are you ready to explore some deeper things in this game?
Absolutely. I think it's time to see if this is more than just a silly game.
Right. So remember last time we were talking about how the game's premise with the whole alien cartel harvesting humans for drugs could actually be a commentary on society?
Right.
Do you think there's something more to that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's like the game is making fun of our culture and how we are obsessed with getting what we want immediately and escaping reality.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's saying, hey, look how ridiculous this is.
Exactly. And it's doing it with aliens and guns.
And remember we were talking about those talking weapons?
Yeah.
And how they're not just there for the laughs.
Right.
They're constantly commenting on what you're doing, and
Yeah.
sometimes they even argue with each other.
Yeah, it's like they're questioning if you really have a choice.
Right. So are we really in control of our actions?
Exactly. Are we just following a path that's already laid out for us?
I never thought about it like that.
That's the thing about satire. It can make you laugh, but also make you think about things in a different way.
So while we're running around shooting aliens and laughing,
Yeah,
we're also thinking about big questions.
that's right.
I'm looking at High on Life totally differently now. But what about the meaning of life?
Well, reachpool didn't really say, but I think the game is telling you to question what you think and to find your own meaning.
So they're not giving you the answers.
No.
They're giving you the tools to find them.
Right. And they do that with humor, which is really clever because it helps you think about big things without making it too serious.
So it's like sneaking those ideas in while you're having fun.
Exactly.
This game is a really interesting mix of humor and deeper thought. It makes High on Life different from other comedy games.
I agree.
So after all this, what's your final verdict?
Well, I think if you want to just shoot stuff, this might not be for you.
Okay.
But if you're looking for something new and different and makes you think there, then this is a good game to check out.
You might even see the world in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to all our listeners out there,
Yeah.
if you want to play something funny and makes you think,
Yeah.
give High on Life a try.
Just watch out for those bugs.
Great. And maybe you'll discover something new about yourself along the way.
That'd be cool.
And that's it for this deep dive on High on Life.
Yeah, that was fun.
It was a lot of fun going through this crazy world with you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. Till next time, keep playing and keep those conversations going.
See ya.